Hi, it's Mark again, and I am here with Lauren Wong. So welcome to our OA interviews, Lauren. I'm excited to have you here. Thanks for taking the time out from your third day on a new job at
Ooh,
UCSD.
thank you. And
Um,
throw away.
Yeah, and so I want to kind of just jump in. I think you have been doing some amazing advocacy work, and that's part of what I want to share is the importance of kind of being an advocate for the outdoors and people's access outdoors. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what you've done with American Hiking Society and your role as a next gen leader.
Totally. So at the start of last year, I had left away and was just looking for outdoor communities to plug into. And I stumbled across American Hiker Society and applied for their Next Gen Trail Leader program, and got a call with them and was actually selected to be a part of the program, which was awesome. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but they saw in me that I was somebody who was doing local work in my communities, had held positions or been a part of other like outdoor, I mean, we're not like an industry, but like outdoor spaces, I guess you could call like what OA is. Um, and they asked me to serve in this role. And one of the really cool things that I got to do in this role was go to Washington, D.C. For the Hike the Hill event, which is an event where a bunch of different outdoor advocacy groups come together for like a weekend or like a chunk of time. And they go and like set up meetings with their elected officials, and they go to like public hearings about bills that are being passed that directly affect the outdoors, and they make space for people to talk about why the outdoors is important to them and why conserving it and giving resources to the folks that steward the land is important. So I got to be a part of that process and share my story about how education and the outdoors have all intersected for me, and why I think it's important that we continue to use our voices to talk to folks that allocate resources, that make these bills about protecting outdoor spaces and outdoor land.
So can you tell us, was there a particular bill that you were lobbying for? And were there any, what elected officials were you able to meet with when you were there?
Yeah. Um, some of the bills we were talking about were the Outdoors for All Act, and the Transit to Trails Act. And so those were bills that were like currently being talked about in different committees. And I think it was really cool while I was there. I got to meet somebody who works for American Hiker Society and runs the Next Gen Trail Lead program. His name's Tyler. And he is just somebody who like lives in Washington, D.C. and is in the know about all the bills and stuff, like things that maybe a normal person who's passionate about the outdoors like wouldn't necessarily know, but like he knew what was going on in senators' offices. So like it was cool because I got an invite to like go meet with Kamala Harris's people and like go meet with Jimmy Gomez, who I'm from the currently live in the LA area. So he is the representative for my district. And so while I didn't get to meet these people officially, I did get to meet their like other people. It was cool to be able to like talk about real bills that they had like been working with. And so it was cool because you share your story, and then it's kind of like a little political in a way, like you have to like name a bill that they're working on, because I mean they have just so much on their plates. So when you say something like, hey, I'd really like to talk about the Outdoors for All Act, they kind of go, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Like I know what that bill is, and like, yes, we're endorsing it, or no, we're not endorsing it. And then that's our opportunity to be like, no, but as a constituent, like, I want you to endorse it for these reasons. And so that was really interesting. That time, we were actually able to like meet with some senators that were Republican senators that were kind of on the fence about whether or not they wanted to endorse the bill. And so they ended up actually endorsing it, which is awesome. And it's so political, right? Like that bill was called the Outdoors for All Act, and like, what does that mean, and what's actually in the bill. And I think by the time that it got passed later on, which was like a while after the Hike the Hill event, it had become slightly different than what we were advocating for. So stuff just like moves so quickly, which is crazy.
Yeah, at the same time, it feels like it takes forever because people were probably working on the Outdoors for All Act for years before it got to be passed.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. And you don't realize just like who's all working on this stuff. Like, not only was it American Hiker Society folks that were like advocating, but like people that like are ACT advocates, that like are PCT ambassadors, like all of these people had been in rooms like talking about some version of this thing for years. And so like for me just to come in for like a weekend and be like, hey, I like the outdoors too, like please endorse this act, like it was crazy. But then to hear from the people that have been like doing all the other advocacy work, that like me sharing my voice as a constituent for that representative is so important, it kind of like opened my eyes to like, wow, like getting involved in the politics as a constituent, just as like an everyday person who has like buy-in because you're the elected official, like I elected you, like that was really powerful to understand that like, oh, I have power even if I wasn't involved in like getting this thing through the door.
and I think with the outdoors in particular, you often hear, oh, keep politics separate. Like, let's just enjoy nature. So what would your response be to that idea that the outdoors and nature is not political?
Oh my God, my response is to melt right in my hiking boots and like just die. Anyways, I think my response is that like the outdoors is so political, so political. Like the reason why we have those spaces is like political. And if you look at the history, right, like the reason why we have national parks is like wild. It's so wild. And then like we talk about like who, and then if you even think even further of like who are the people that occupied that land before it was designated as a park or like an outdoor space, and what happened to those folks, and like what is going on with them right now, because they are still with us, they're still here, their voices, they are like using those voices to fight just as hard to protect those lands. I mean, like you're wearing a Bears Ears shirt, like that was part of the huge conversation with like that piece of land in particular, right? And so I think like as people who go into outdoor spaces and experience them for what they are, like we just have to recognize that like everything around us is there because of the politics of it. And I mean, I know that's like such a bummer sometimes because we go into those outdoor spaces to kind of like get a buffer from that world and do some healing and like get space from it all. But it's hard not to recognize that like there are resources in those spaces that have been fought over forever, whether that be water, whether that be the land itself, whether that be the people on the land. Like it's wild. And then also like really the Transit to Trails Act was one for me that's like, of course it's political, right? Like how many people don't get to access our national parks because there's not public transit to those places? Like you have to have a car or whatever. And so what people are told then that like national parks aren't for them because they can't get there. And that's political, right? Like if we made a message and like put resources towards getting public transit into outdoor spaces, like that sends a message that everyone can enjoy the outdoors. But that infrastructure is not there right now. So it's hard to see a perspective that maybe isn't your own. And I think that is part of like what it means to be an important advocate in the outdoors, and to just recognize that like when you're in outdoor spaces, there's a narrative there. And yeah, I think it's important to like question that narrative and be critical about what that narrative is.
And so I'm wondering, how would you describe your own path and your own identity as becoming the outdoor leader that you are today?
Wild. My path has been wild. I think I was reflecting on this a lot. I have a friend now that we went to college together, and we like to go hiking now. And we joked around that in college, like, you never would have seen me hiking. Like outdoors, what? And so like my journey has just looked really different. And it was, I grew up going to church camps, and I think like that was one of my main connectors. My family like car camped on the weekends every once in a while. So I knew what the outdoors was, and had like some skills in it. And I think like a big catalyst for it was just like keep getting thrown into these, like, I know that I had skill sets to be an outdoor leader in terms of like taking care of people and like creating an outdoor community, and people kept recognizing that in me. And so when I got my position with OA, like part of that was because I was trying to get a master's degree in higher education, but I think my experience in OA helped unlock a little bit for me that like I can be a part of a group of people that like develops these skills for people that makes them feel really confident. And so when I left OA, I started to realize like, oh, I have the skills I need to like feel safe in the outdoors, to feel like I can hike a couple days on my own or even camp a couple days on my own and like feel safe. And so I think OA for me gave me the skills I needed to like just like the safety piece, right? We talk about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs in higher ed. And so I felt like I got some of those basics down. And then from there, I was able to like grow even more so in terms of like, what do I want this to mean for my personal life? And so personally, like I enjoy hiking. I've joined a lot of outdoor groups that are like affinity spaces for me. So whether that be outdoors and the LGBTQ community or outdoors in the Asian community, like, and I've just found a lot of personal support through those things. And then I think it's also still cultivating, like I use my outdoor skills when I work with my RAs and I want to lead a hike. And for me, it's been my like outdoor journey has also been really tied to my journey in with my mental health, and like what does it mean to cultivate my love of nature, my relationship with nature as a way to live a full life and like live a healthy life for me. And so I think those are like big things that just keep getting woven in between each other. And like now the outdoors is, it just makes up kind of part of who I am. And people know me as somebody that likes to do those things and is skilled um, enough to like enjoy the outdoors. So I'm always happy to pass that information on to others. And I think that's the small way we build relationships. And I think the outdoors is about building relationships for me.
Mm-hmm. And I think I mean, I've seen from you and as you're talking, the words comfort. I think you're comfortable because you've become competent,
Mhm.
and and I think that leads to you being confident, and not just in the outdoors, but in other aspects of your life as well. And it's exciting to see you as a leader in the communities that you identify with, particularly because those communities might not be as represented as some of the historical communities that have been accessing these places. So well, I want to be mindful of our time. Love catching up and hearing your story, and excited that you're going to be a little bit closer to us. And thanks for taking some time with us today.
Yeah, for sure. I am excited to talk to folks. If you are virtually hiking with OA, good luck. And I'm just proud that you are taking it on.